You're watching Let the Quran Speak. With great power comes great responsibility. We remind ourselves of this famous quote in light of two troubling stories. In India, 23 children died after eating food provided in a nationwide free meal program. And recently, historical research uncovered nutritional experiments done on Aboriginal children in the 1940s and 50s while they were at residential schools. What responsibility do those in power have towards those in their care? How should the vulnerable be treated? And what does Islam say about how to use one's power? With me to discuss that, Brother Shabir Ali, President of the Islamic Information Center. Brother Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
So I'm sure you've heard these stories in the news recently about the nationwide food program in India, which killed many people in Bihar, one of the poorest provinces of India. And also the story of the Aboriginals and the experiments that have come out that were done in the 1940s and 50s. What are your thoughts on these incidents?
Well, these are troubling incidents, and they do bring to mind the sayings of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about responsibility. There is a hadith which says, "Kullukum ra'in wa mas'ulun an ra'iyati." Each one of you is a shepherd and is responsible for his flock. And then it goes into more detail, saying that each person has some responsibility. A mother has responsibility for her children, and so on. And the word for being responsible in Arabic is mas'ul, which means one will be questioned. So the responsible person, like one who has some position of authority, is the mas'ul, is the person to be questioned. It's like somebody putting up a sign in the office meant to be humorous, saying if anything goes wrong, I'm to blame. Sometimes blame comes around to people who do not deserve blame. But so
it's about accountability then, and not just responsibility, but you're accountable to the one to whom you are in charge of.
Yes, exactly. So in this sense, we can see how Omar, the second caliph of Islam, behaved towards the citizens and even to animals. It is noted that Omar, for all his power and the fact that people feared him, he was a man of stature and people felt that some overawed by his presence, let me put it this way. So Omar, it is noted, was very humble, though he was the ruler, and he used to go around at night to make sure that everyone is fed. Imagine in today's context that the head of state is walking the streets to make sure that there are no homeless people and that people have something to eat at the end of the day. This is what Omar was known for.
I think the key here is that you're not just accountable to people, but you're accountable towards those who are most vulnerable, right? They wouldn't be able to survive, or they would have difficulty surviving without your care.
Yes. In this context, too, we can cite the example of Omar, because it is noted that he said, as justification for these patrols, that if a dog dies while he is caliph, he would be responsible. The practical manifestation of this concern for the people, and of course for animals as well, is that on one occasion it is reported that Omar came upon a dwelling where there was a woman just stirring a pot and her children were crying. So when he looked into the matter, he came to learn that the woman had nothing to eat, and there was nothing actually cooking on the pot, but she was just going through the motions to let the children be satisfied that something is being cooked for them. And by buying time in this way, eventually the kids would hopefully go to sleep, and that will be the end of the matter for the day. But when Omar learned of this, he went back to the public treasury and he got some supplies, cooking materials, flour and so on. And then he said to his servant, "Okay, now put this bag on my back." And the servant said, "No, I'm supposed to carry this bag." And Omar asks him, "Will you carry my burdens on the day of judgment?" So Omar was quite concerned as to what he would say to his Lord on the day of judgment about the people under his care. So he carried the bag himself. And he went there and he cooked the food himself, it is reported, and then he made sure the children had something to eat, and then he stayed for a while. And then he asked the servant, do you know why I stayed? He said, I saw them while they were crying, and I wanted to see them now while they're happy and playing. So
it's clear then that there's a sense of very personal responsibility. It's not just, I'm doing my job, but, there's something that I'm accountable to God for.
yeah, absolutely. And in this vein, we can mention several reports that show the concern that we should have even for animals. On one occasion, it is reported that the Prophet, peace be upon him, saw a camel whose back had actually become bent, and that's from years of carrying over more than its reasonable capacity of burden. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the owner of this camel will be questioned about this camel on the Day of Judgment.
So, coming back to the case of India, what really troubled me about this case is the fact that these are poor children who are coming to the school mostly to get food, to get this free food that is offered by the school. And at the same time, they're being offered substandard food. There are reports that sometimes there would be insects, there would be rats even found in the food in different parts of the country. But in this particular province and in this school, they were given food that was mixed with insecticide. So it's not clear how the insecticide actually got into their food. But of course, many people died as a result and others were injured. So to me that was very troubling, the fact that these are people who really relied on the food and came to the school for the food, and at the same time they were let down, that the officials didn't really care about the health standards of the food that they were giving. They were just kind of giving out food to fulfill the purpose of giving out food.
When people are in such situations of responsibility, things can become routine for them.
Yeah.
They just want to get through the day. They just want to get through the year. And at the end of the year, they draw their salary, or each month or whatever. So for them, it's a job, and people may be treated as numbers. And they forget this sense of personal responsibility. But religion teaches us actually to be accountable to God, who is ultimately responsible for our own well-being and who cares for us. We should also care for those who are under us in whatever capacity. The Prophet, peace be upon him, even taught us that if you have a servant in the house, let the servant eat the same food that you eat, and wear the same kind of clothing that you wear. This is remarkable teaching. In a way, it sounds even too ideal. Could people actually live up to that? But even if it is taken as an ideal, at least even if people fall short of that ideal, people under their care should still be well treated. And as you know from some of these reports, it is mentioned that even though the smell from some of the cooking oil clearly indicated that some chemicals that did not belong there were burning along with the oil being cooked. Well, that should have been a dead giveaway that something is wrong, but people turned a blind eye to this reality. And that shows obviously a lack of concern, the kind of concern which we learn from our traditions that we should have for those under our care.
In the case of the Aboriginal children in the 1940s and 50s, these were individuals who were sent to residential schools. So they were taken away from their parents and sent to schools, and the goal was to assimilate them into Canadian society. And at the same time, the government was doing, or scientists were doing experiments on them without their or their parents' knowledge. So they were denying them certain nutritional benefits, milk, for example, vitamins, dental care. They were denying some of the population in order to test the others. What are your thoughts on that? On that sort of research that we're finding now?
Yeah, more than talking about personal responsibility, I believe that religion has a very important role here in molding the minds of people in power. We can treat other human beings as non-human sometimes if we do not bear in mind the important teachings that humans are special creations of God. In the Quran, it is mentioned that God has ennobled the children of Adam. So when we are dealing with people, we cannot treat them as guinea pigs, people to be or objects to be experimented upon. We distinguish between people and animals, or people and other animals, even if biologically people might be classed with animals. Our religious teachings hold that human beings are special. They are given a greater degree of intelligence, a soul that is capable of recognizing and having a close and intimate relationship with God. The Quran describes the creation of Adam and said God breathed into him of his spirit. And a hadith says that when a mother is pregnant, the angels come and the spirit is blown into the womb of the mother. So human beings are in fact special, and if we take religion out of the picture, then people may just start thinking of human beings as being on equal footing with other animals, and if we can experiment on other animals, why not on human beings as well? Of course, if we can get away with it. Nowadays, the ethos has largely changed, and we think that such kinds of experiments would be ethically unacceptable. But still, people may be doing things behind the scenes that we're unaware of. And the antidote for that sort of behavior, the antidote for the misuse of humans, is to recognize the great value of humans. And that recognition comes from the great religious teachings.
All right, thank you for that, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break. When we return, we will answer questions we received from you, our viewers.